when we're in the fourth quarter and teams start to get tired, that's not going to be our team. And you watch even in the games Florida lost, and even in the games they won, there's close games. And if it comes down to who can put together one more drive or get one more stop, the team that's not, hands on head or hands on knees gasping for air is going to be the team that likely comes out with a win. You didn't get too many of the wins last year, but it's a foundation and a building phase. And I do think that you see that and saw that last year late in games.
And obviously it's not just Mark Hockey. He's got a whole staff of folks, in all type of roles. When you think about Ed Thompson and kind of the energy that he brings, obviously Tiger Jones and in the speed department, and he's got that, cane that he brings out too. I think all those guys have had their impact, and this is their time to shine. I mean, they get their hands on this team right now. As you said, Nick, the coaches are kind of hands off. So it's really these strength coaches that are kind of serving as the leaders, but also you got the players too. You've got the seniors, you've got the kind of upperclassmen, the returning starters, and also you usually have a quarterback that's kind of stepping up as the leader. Now it's kind of a probably awkward period right now as there's no QB1 right now that's been defined. So that's Jack Miller trying to step up and lead in workouts. Graham Mertz. We know your boy Max Brown is getting to skip out on some of these right now as he's playing baseball. But obviously we know the law firm of Mertz and Miller is going to be a topic of conversation throughout this offseason, throughout spring. It was this week on the tailgate show, Nick, when the HBC came on and dropped an absolutely classic line on the radio
when
show.
The HBC talks, Nick and Zach listen, and everyone should. But it's just a classic Steve Spurrier line. Obviously, Shane Matthews was Steve Spurrier's first quarterback. Shane now has transitioned into a role as the color commentary next to Sean Kelly. And Shane and Steve still have a great relationship. And speaking on the tailgate, Steve Spurrier said he was talking to Shane, and Shane told him, "I'm not sure we have a great quarterback right now." Steve Spurrier, I'm sure, without missing a beat, told Shane, "They told me that when I took the Florida job back in 1990, Shane." Of course, meaning they told me that about you, Shane.
Yes.
So you just gotta coach him up. And listen, Billy Napier is the head coach, quarterback's coach, and offensive coordinator. So if you come to Florida as a quarterback, you're going to be seeing a lot of Billy Napier. And you've got Jack Miller, who I think a lot of fans are throwing out any hope or any trust and belief in him. And I understand it. He did not look great in the glorified practice, which was the 2022 spring game. And then he doesn't play all year because he had a broken thumb and a torn ligament in his thumb. Comes back, still doesn't have full feeling in that hand, and is asked to lead the Gators against an Oregon State team that really wanted to win 10 games. And I think Jack was leading a group of Gators that was happy to be in Las Vegas and happy to be home for Christmas. So I'm not ready to close the book on Jack Miller. Obviously, Billy has spoken very highly of Graham Mertz, said that they studied 24 quarterbacks before landing on him. He started 32 games. Sounds great, but really the best game was his first game. And that was back in 2020 against Illinois, a team that proved to be pretty bad on defense the rest of that season. And then Max Brown, who is currently swinging at sliders and fastballs and not going through the foundation or identity phases. Now, Max, and we've said this on the podcast before, Max is here on a football scholarship. It's nice that he's playing baseball. Great that both coaches are giving him the opportunity to try to be a two-sport athlete. I hope he gets at least one at bat this fall or this spring. Make you
next week.
Next week, make you a two-sport letterman. But Max Brown will not miss any spring football practice or meetings. Certainly not the spring game. The way Florida runs practice, you might have someone's arm fall off if they only had two scholarship quarterbacks. So Max Brown will be out there. I don't anticipate that he'll push for that starter job. I think it's going to be one of the law partners with Mertz and Miller. But I'm not ready to throw Jack Miller out yet.
Yeah, definitely too early for that. And you got a guy that's been in this program and in this offense now for a year. So that gives him an upper hand kind of heading into the spring. I just want to circle back on what Spurrier said. It is hilarious that Shane Matthews basically took a dig at Florida's quarterback room, and then Spurrier took one right back at him.
Just flipped it on him. Gave him that Uno reverse card.
I just and it is, you think about this guy buried on the depth chart, basically a no-name, and Spurrier picks him out of the bunch and turns him into an all-SEC performer and record-setting quarterback at the time in conference. And I think this dynamic, as you mentioned, your story, Nick, is a little bit different than Shane Matthews. Even Jack Miller is certainly not a nobody, coming over from Ohio State, and certainly how he was regarded as a recruit. And then you're getting a 3-year starter in Graham Mertz that is stepping in and is definitely has that experience to his advantage, and is something that I think is going to have to show up in the spring if he's going to get this job. But look, to Spurrier's point, man, you got to coach him up. You obviously got to build your offense around your signal caller and whatever you have to work with. You got to find a way to produce and get points on the board. We all know that, given the backs that Florida has, that's going to probably be a strength of their offense. They should be able to lean on that with the way that they've reloaded on the offensive line. So as we've mentioned, this is going to be, I think, a different responsibility maybe on the quarterback than there was last year with Anthony, who did a lot at that spot. There'll be some responsibilities that change, but I also think that there's a chance that maybe Mertz can execute and do some things better than Anthony, whether that's just from an experience standpoint and some of the execution of the offense. I think Ant was obviously growing throughout the year, and by the time the season was over, had progressed a lot in some of those areas. But you gain some things from getting Graham, but obviously you lose a lot in losing Anthony, especially from an ability standpoint. So this is going to be the highlight of the spring, Nick, this battle, and I'm sure Spurrier's is just as anxious to see it play out as everybody else.
And listen, the head ball coach will be out there at spring practice, and I will be looking to see if we can get him back on the show, Zach, or if he's doing any more radio appearances, because he'll have his opinions after he sees both these guys spin it a couple times. I'm sure of that. It will be, I think, a 2-man race, and probably not one that's decided by the spring. It could be. Last year, I think we all knew it would be Anthony Richardson, but you had this kind of unknown in Jack Miller, and we can only see so much in the open media portion time that we're out there. So by the time it got to showtime, that Thursday night in the swamp under the lights, obviously Anthony Richardson was the one that took the stage. Going back to your point a little bit, I think the offense has to change big time. You don't have that kind of dynamic runner that Anthony Richardson was. And we talk a lot about Florida's offensive line, and we give them a lot of credit for their performance last year. How many times would a less mobile quarterback have been sacked potentially, though?
Yes, absolutely.
To inflate those numbers that we're lauding the offensive line for. How many times if not for Anthony Richardson, it might have been a sack? Or how many games would you not have been in if not for Anthony's running ability? Just look at the season opener. Anthony runs for like $140 and 3 touchdowns against Utah. You're not going to get that from any of the quarterbacks you have on campus now. So Billy Napier and his offensive staff have a lot of work to do to throw out whatever the playbook was last year, because your quarterback can't do that stuff.
Nope.
So you have a whole new identity on offense coming up.